Hey everyone, welcome to It Tastes Different Game Reviews. In this episode, we're going to talk about Deathloop. Deathloop is developed by Arkane Studios, published by Bethesda Softworks. Came out on September 14th of 2021 on Windows and PlayStation 5. It's a single player. It does have a multiplayer component, but it's a typically single player action adventure. And it's pretty much made by Arkane. Like I said, it's pretty much the player takes the role on the role of Colt, an assassin stuck in a time loop, has been tasked to take out 8 targets called Visionaries across the island before midnight, or the loop restarts. Then he has to do it all over again. So this is made by Arkane Studios. If you know anything about Arkane, you think of the Dishonored games and Dishonored 1 and 2 and Prey. I think they have a couple of maybe other games in their belt, but those are the big ones that everyone seems to know about. And this is kind of like that in a sense. You kind of feel that Dishonored kind of touch to it, but we're going to go around and see what everybody thinks of this game and what they thought of. So let's go ahead and start with, let's say, how about Shane? Shane, you look like you want to talk. What do you think?
I always want to talk. I got a big mouth. This game is really okay. It is a game that I was wanting more out of. It delivered what I expected, but it didn't deliver beyond that. I love Dishonored franchise. I love Prey. The gameplay of this game is the weakest component, and I would more say it's along the control side of it than really the mechanics of it. I don't know. I just felt like the controls could have been set up better. Now, the gameplay style is fun. What you can do and how you can play it and the powers and blah, blah, blah are really good. The story writing is fantastic. The story is okay, but the writing for the dialogue, general dialogue, is freaking hilarious. I love it. I think they did an amazing job on it. But the caveat is it's really, in my opinion, it's all basically null and voided because of the controller setups. I don't like the way the controller is set up for it. I don't think they put the best foot forward on it. I think they could have done a lot of things differently with it. But other than that, play it. It's a good enough game to play for most people. I didn't really get the appeal that a lot of people were blowing up about. I really didn't. But then again, it's Dishonored, and they'll make tweaks and put out stuff. Nick, maybe you'll talk about the multiplayer here in a little bit, though, just so I can brag. Russ, what about you, bud? What do you think?
This game is like Groundhog Day meets source code. I don't know. Maybe that's just a little bit of a reach, but it's kind of what that is. Coming from Arkane Studios, this game here ends up doing the same thing that Dishonored and Prey and all those games that did for me. I lost interest very quickly. I know there'll be some offense to some of our gamer buddies here in this room, but I never could really get into the Dishonored franchise. I could never really get into Prey. Usually there's a great storyline that starts the game. It's very intriguing. It's very interesting, but very quickly the controls, the way the game plays gets very muddled and very almost frustrating. And then there's nothing that really catches my interest early on. Almost every game that I end up really, really loving, there's something that really grabs my attention within that first hour. This here it's almost an hour plus of tutorial alone. You really don't get going until later in the game. And I only know that because of communications that me and this team has had prior to us recording this, because I got too bored. I got too it's very dull. The writing is good. The graphically, it's a gorgeous game. It is very fantastically made on that sense, but I just could not get into it. This is going to be one of those podcasts. I'm going to get a warning to everybody. I may only say 4 or 5 more things, but it is really tough, really, really tough to get into. Again, like Shane said, the hype had me kind of pumped, but within the first 30 minutes, I had the controller in one hand and my head on the other one, just kind of dozing off, just because I was ready to have a lot more action within that first few minutes. Kind of disappointing considering it's coming from Arkane and Bethesda had a hand in it, or at least published it. But it is what it is. So Patrick, what about you, man? What are you thinking?
This game is extremely boring. I hate it. I don't know. Hate's a strong word. I cannot get into this game for the life of me. It is super boring. The gameplay is generic. You got a primary weapon, secondary weapon. You can pick up weapons. You can pick up mods. You pick up all that crap. It's stealth game to some extent. You can stealth or run and gun it, your choice, but you're not going to, unless you're decked out, you're not going to be running gunning it too much because they're just going to overrun you. But it's got a lot of stealth aspect to it. I may piss off a lot of people, but I completely don't like Dishonored and I don't like Prey. So more from this studio is the same, in my opinion. If you don't like Dishonored, you're probably not going to like this game. It's the writing is funny. There's some funny stuff in the writing, but overall the gameplay is just boring and it's a slog. I mean, you go out, you complete the mission, you come back to your apartment, you go into a different area of the complex, and this next part, you go out, you come back, and the intermediate menus, in my opinion, are too busy. You're just like spending a lot of time cycling through menus to save weapons and keep things from resetting through the loops and crap. And I'm just like, I didn't buy a game so I could spend 25% of it in menus. And that's what you're doing in this game, in my opinion. Between every session, you're just running through menus, looking at clues, doing this and that. So to me, the game is extremely boring, and I must be missing something because like IGN gave it a 10, but I don't take anything IGN says for with a grain of salt because they rate the crap out of everything. If you pay them, they rate you high. If you don't pay them, whatever. Honestly, if I was rating this game, it would be pretty low. It wouldn't be in the 80s or 90s. It would be between a 6 and a 7, but not my style of game. I don't like roguelike because I hate playing the same thing over and over and over. And this game just leaves that too because you only have like 4 or 5 maps, I think. I think it's 4. Can't remember. But you only have that many different places. And, and the gameplay to me is very similar to Dishonored. Controls feel kind of the same. It's just more updated, and I didn't like Dishonored. So, Nick, what are your thoughts, man? What are your initial impressions of this game?
Yeah. This game, like Shane said, is okay. And that's about it. I may surprise some of you guys as well. I don't like Dishonored either. I could never get into the game. I've played 1 and 2, and I played about an hour. You know what I figured out after playing Deathloop? I do not like anything Arkane puts out. That's just it. There's just something about their games that I cannot get into. I don't know what it is because they are good structurally games, right? Meaning Dishonored has good combat and and the story and the environments and everything's all well placed together. There's just something about their games that I just cannot, it just does not grab my interest. Deathloop was another one of those. Like after I got through the tutorial, and Russ is exactly right, the tutorial is long as crap and it doesn't really tell you it's a tutorial until you get through it. Then you're like, oh, that was all tutorial. But once I got through that and I realized what the gameplay loop was, I said, great. I mean, it's roguelike, so I understand that. I'm going to go back to the same environments, learning, gathering better weapons and kind of getting piecemealed the story and various things like that. How many times do I want to repeat this? How many times do I want to do this? And what I found is I stopped playing it and started playing a different game. So that was how many times I wanted to do it. I was already, after the tutorial was finished, I was pretty much done doing the loop, right? But yeah, I'm not gonna throw it at Arkane. I'm just saying, like, any of the Arkane titles that they make, Dishonored 1 and 2 and Prey, I've never played those past probably an hour. I just cannot get into them. Like I've tried them all. I played Dishonored 1, I played Dishonored 2, I played Prey, about an hour into it, I can't do it anymore. Like there's just something about the way, I don't necessarily think it's controller wise. I don't know if this is something about how they set up their gameplay for those games or something like that just does not grasp my interest. So yeah, I think I'm just not a big fan of this studio. Even though I think they make great stuff. It's just stuff that's not for me. And Deathloop's another one. I mean, I besides the writing, I think the writing's great and the graphics look fantastic. Other than that, it is a roguelike game. And again, I do like roguelike titles, but I can only play them for so long. I love Hades, but I only played Hades for like a few hours. And then after that, I'm tired of going through the same levels again. Same thing with Curse of the Dead Gods. We reviewed that one a while back, and that's a great game, but it is a roguelike. And after a while, I was tired of going through the levels again. Right. So roguelikes they can only go so far for me before I get bored of the repeating of the same steps. So this was another one of those. Yeah, I don't know why a lot of places, I mean, not just IGN, but a lot of other places gave it 5 out of 5s and 10s and stuff like that. And I don't understand why this game, other than maybe graphics and the writing on it, which I think is great. Other than that, I don't, again, kind of like the rest of you guys, I don't understand the appeal of it. Like after a while, I'm kind of bored of playing it and like, yeah, let's put this one down to pasture because I'm moving on to something else that's giving me a little bit more variety than the same thing over and over again. So yeah, it's just not for me. I mean, some people will like it and really have a lot of fun with it. Dishonored 1 and 2 and Prey have sold relatively well and rated really well. So I mean, I can understand from this studio who makes pretty good games. As far as a studio goes, there's just not for me. Like none of their games have appealed to me. So that's just it. This game is okay. That's all I got to say about it.
It seems odd that they would take a roguelike game. Because in my opinion, I have the same problem as you do. Roguelike, sometimes I can get into them, sometimes not. And when I do get into them, I can put an hour or two in them and that's it. And I got to come back later because it is rinse, repeat. A AAA title as a roguelike game seems like a complete waste. I mean, once you run through each map once and you pick up all the clues and you're like, okay, cool. Now I know what each map is like. They throw different things like more enemies or they start throwing the end boss guys in there and stuff. I just don't get it. I don't see the appeal of this game. But as you said, the studio often gets games rated in like the 8s and 9s. I mean, that's where Dishonored was. But I did the same thing. I played Dishonored and it was like an hour and I'm like, I am done with this game. And that's not roguelike game. It's just a stealth game. But I think their games are maybe a little bit too busy. I don't know how to put it. I just don't know. Because you get into that point where you're just like, meh, this is boring. And that's where I ran into this game. I tried so many times I could put in 30 minutes here, 40 minutes there, an hour here. And after about 4 or 5 hours, I'm like, I'm done. Even though Nick's like, the tutorial ends, it gets really good because you can start getting the radium or whatever the hell it's called, And I'm like, okay, cool. I see that stuff everywhere, but I can't run through this map again. I'm done. I'm over it. I'm tired of it. So to me, it's not deserving of the 10 out of 10 or the 5 out of 5s or even the 9 out of 10. But maybe there's enough roguelike fans that don't mind the repetition and doing the same thing over and spending 25% of your time in the menus.
Well, before I say any more about the game, you can all suck a dirty butthole. Dishonored 1 and 2 were both fantastic. Prey was fantastic. I want a divorce from you 3 and you can keep the kids. I'm done. Now,
all right.
Back for the game.
You go off and start your own. We'll see you later.
Back for the game, though. It's there is something about this game that just doesn't click. And to me, it's the controls. The controls are it's too much. And you're definitely right about all the menu crap, Pat. It really is. It's an encyclopedia of shit you got to dig through. And that does get annoying. I do not want to be forced to read throughout an entire game. And you really are with this game. You are forced to read a lot.
There's no way you're memorizing all those clues. You're like, okay, I'm going to go back into this area. What were the clues for that area? Okay, if I come at this time of the day, I can do this, this, and this, or the gate will be cracked, or the garage door will be cracked, or something. Yeah, it's way too much to remember because is there 4 or 5 areas? I can't remember.
There's 4 areas.
4 areas. So and so there's clues for each area, and there's time clues that are if you show up at this time, there's this clue and that clue, and I'm just like I can't remember all that, and I'm not going to keep it straight. So yeah, I would say after about an hour each playthrough, which is roughly a map playthrough. I'm a little bit slow crawler through each map. I like to explore every corner of every map. After about an hour playthrough of every map, I'm like, I don't feel like going over. I don't feel like going to the next area.
For this game. Oh, sorry, Russ.
No, you're all right.
What were you saying? Go ahead, man.
Well, what I was going to say was this may lead into something that you're about to say, or at least this is a question, kind of a question for a group. Is a game like this gives you a feel of false progression. I think for Patrick and for Nick especially, when you play a game, they love to have character progression. Your character is progressing through the story. They're progressing to become stronger. Shane likes that too a little bit, but he can go both ways when it comes to a game, no pun intended. And so like when it comes down to it, like this game gives you false progression. Yes, you are progressing through the game as you're learning more clues and you're putting weapons away, but I think that's part of the annoyance. I think part of the annoyance is that you're not seeing your progression actually happen in the same way as other games. Maybe that's what's wrong with a game like this.
Well, and that kind of goes in what I was going to say is, for me, I would rather see this game being a full-length story, not this time looping stuff. They could put in the time looping stuff, like in the time travel and the looping and various things, but I would like to see a continuous story, because once you get past the tutorial, you understand the gameplay loop. The gameplay loop is go through each one of these areas through a day and night cycle, collecting bigger trinkets and taking out the visionaries and learning more about the story, and just rinse and repeat that until you get to a point where the story says, okay, you're strong enough or you learned enough. And now because you have to kill all 8 within one time loop. That's the basic thing. And you have basically, you can visit the time day night cycle is pretty much 4, and there's 4 locations. So you have to kill 8 people. And you only have 4 chances. So how do you do that, right? And as you loop through, I'm assuming the story eventually gets to the point where you figure that out. But that's it. I would rather it had more of just a story from a start to finish, not a looping thing. Like they could add in the looping stuff, but just make that a part of the main story of the game, right? Where there's not this roguelike looping. It's just like this time travel is a part of it and stuff like that. I think for me, that would have been a lot better than this roguelike aspect of just looping through until you figure enough clues out to kill everybody.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think you're absolutely right. Giving it a more straightforward shot, even though you have the time travel, make that, the actual story. And that's definitely the way they should have went with it. I am disappointed with them on this game because I really enjoyed Dishonored series. I really enjoyed Prey. This one here was a letdown, which I'm really surprised the 4 of us are in agreement, especially you, Nick. I thought you would be the one to really get into this because there's repetition, there's pain, there's suffering. And that's just playing the game. So I thought you would be like all up in that shit. The multiplayer aspect of this game, though, is a really cool, interesting ideal. There's just too many little flaws with it to make it really enjoyable.
What the hell are we playing? Dark Souls? Come on, the multiplayer is garbage. Come on, this isn't Dark Souls.
No,
the multiplayer is pretty cool because as the girl, you actually have your own skills and you can get your own weapons and trinkets and stuff and level that one up too. I like the idea of the multiplayer in this one. I just wish it was more fleshed out into an actual multiplayer thing, right? Because what we found from me and Shane when we tried it out is so people can invade your game as the other girl, as Juliana. You can set that how you like, right? You can set it to where it's completely open and anybody can come in, where it's friends only, or where it's single player, where it's just the AI that comes in occasionally. But what we found is there's only certain maps and certain times a day that Juliana can actually invade your game. So depending on the time of day and the map you have selected, like for example, like in noontime, there's only like 2 maps that she can invade on. So if you're in the other map, there's no invading happening, right? So, I mean, you could get lucky and never find that. Right. I mean, because some days it was just like one map, I think. Right. I think there was like evening time. There was just one map that she can invade on, and that's it. And then like some of the other ones were two. I think 2 maps was the max on some of the other daytime ones. And that was about it. But if you're playing Juliana, you do have your own stats, your own level increases, your own tree kits, your own abilities, and slabs and various things like that. Slabs are like mystical powers, basically, that Colt can have as well. So there is kind of a meta game in with her as being the other character. You're not just going in as this overpowered juggernaut. You do level up and get your own skills and stuff like that. And it's a pretty cool idea. I just wish, if they're going to add this multiplayer aspect, it was just a little bit more fleshed out, because once you kill Juliana, you can't invade that person again. So you can't go back in there and invade them the second time. Once you're dead as Juliana, if the other person kills you, you cannot go back in there and invade them. Juliana is pretty much restricted for that entire time. And I don't think that just means for you, that means for any Juliana. Like basically once someone invades you and you kill her, that's it, right? The entire rest of that map, Juliana will never appear again until like maybe next time when you after the loop and you reload it or something. So, but I wish there was kind of some sort of multiplayer component where you could enter that in as Colt and Juliana and do some sort of spy versus spy kind of thing. That would be kind of fun with your friends, where this just is like, it was kind of fun. That means Shane did it, but it's like, the thing, I don't know about you, Shane, but it's like after a couple of times doing it, it's like, all right, we did it, and that was it. And like, we'll never do it again, pretty much, because there's just not enough there for that. And that you can't just replay that over and over or something like that. You have to wait. You have to set the right time of day and the right map and the right settings, and the rain's got to be, it's got to be raining. It's got to be 70 degrees outside. It's got to be partly cloudy. I mean, there's just so many aspects that have to come into play in order for Juliana to invade. It's kind of ridiculous.
Sounds like Hoover Dam.
It's the multiplayer is so limited to how you can play. When you can play, it takes the fun out. I mean, the concepts are really cool overall, but Juliana's character, dead once, she's dead permanent. That's it. Basically that match is over. Now, if you kill Colt, you got to do it 3 times. Wasn't it 3 times, Nick, I believe?
Technically, only if you have the trinket on. If you don't have that trinket, like further on in the game, you can place that trinket. You don't get 3 deaths.
That's
you only
true.
Get the 1.
That's true. Yeah.
But it's just so. It's one of those really cool concepts that they just didn't put enough thought into.
I don't know. I didn't find it a cool concept in Dark Souls. I don't find it a cool concept in this one. It's for the masochist out there.
Well, then that's why
I want to
love it.
I want to screw over the player. I just want to screw over this guy that's playing. So that's what I'm going to do. And that's
unfortunately, in Dark Souls, you can't turn that off. But in this, you can. If you switch it to single player, I mean, you might have an AI Juliana coming in on those occasional settings, but AI is a little bit easier to kill and a little bit easier to run away from if you wanted to go that route. So it's not a big hurdle for you. So at least the game gives you the opportunity to turn that setting off if you don't want it.
Well, cool.
Yeah, I
think if our resident masochist doesn't like this game, then there's a problem with it, So the resident masochist of our group doesn't care much for it. That should tell you something. And I know Russ and Nick both like roguelike games. Russ played the crap out of that Returnal Soul, whatever that one game was that we had rated a while back, that roguelike game, and Nick did too.
Curse of the Dead Gods.
And I'm like, I don't care for this stuff. So
I've actually played a lot of Hades too. So I mean, but this is not like that though. Too, it is, but it isn't. I mean, that's like a kill an hour and a half after work type of game. This is like kill me after an hour and a half of playing it. I mean, it's a different type of thing.
It is a different type of roguelike. I will agree, because it's not exactly roguelike. It's kind of like it's got the ideas of roguelike and the kind of concept, but there is something different about it that doesn't make it an actual roguelike like Hades and Curse of the Dead God. But still, I mean, I played it all quite a bit on a Saturday afternoon and got through the tutorial and kind of played some of the main loop progression storyline. And for me, more than likely, I'll probably never play it again.
I think if
I want my money back.
I think if they had took the stealth aspect and toned it down and pumped up the action aspect, I think it'd have been a hell of a lot better game.
No, I mean, I don't mind the stealth part.
I don't think the stealth is done well enough on this one for some reason.
I mean, I stealth through the entire thing.
The stealth in Dishonored is amazing, but this one here, I don't know. It's just nothing seemed to work quite right for me. But I did too. I tried to stealth through every aspect of it, and I did fairly well for the overall. I mean, it's a lot like any other stealth game. You have the stealth attacks, you have the stealth kills, but you have the stealth distracts and, ways to, lure people in places or hide bodies and whatnot. So,
I found it just as easy. This is what I did throughout the whole game. I carried a damn collapsible turret with me everywhere and just found a group of them and threw the damn turret out and let the turret take them out. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to go grab my turret and I'm going to go loot all the crap they dropped and I'm going to go to the next area. And I just kept doing that over and over and over. If I ran into a group of them were clustered together, I grenaded them. If there was like one guy overlooking a ledge, I would go back and backstab him and kill him until you get the nail gun. And then I just shoot them from a distance. But I found it was just easier to grab a portable turret somewhere and throw it out in the middle of a group of them and let it take them out.
Yeah, I did that
or
too.
hack it. I just hack all the turrets in an area and just let them take everybody out because they'll all run to the turret that's killing their buddies and then the turret kills them all.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think the game's very boring. Couldn't get past it. I wish I didn't waste my money on it. I want my money back. I wouldn't give them $20 for the game. So
I would,
but unfortunately, I spent my money on it.
I would say 20 would be my max on it. Really, it is frustrating that we spent a full 60 on this thing and then it turns out it's $20 max. Pretty disappointed by it overall. But, I guess this goes to show you, they can't all be hits. And, but they'll learn from it. And hopefully Microsoft will, now that they own Bethesda and Arkane and all that, they'll, say, hey, man, when you put it out on our system, we want these changes made and on Game Pass. So.
Well, it'll be on Game Pass because they own Bethesda, but yeah. I mean, I think for me, what have made it better, like I said before, it's just a straight single player story with the time looping and stuff. You can have all that stuff. That's fine. I would just like a single continuous story where we're not, maybe the time looping happens, but it just adds to the story, right? Not a roguelike, but where we just have a story going from beginning to end, taking down the loop and stuff like that instead of this the whole looping aspect where we have to do everything again and collect these little clues and stuff. But
playing Blue's Clues, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? But if she dies, she comes back over and over and over.
Well, I mean, Shane had mentioned, I hope they learn from this, moving forward. Well, they're not going to learn anything because they're getting rave reviews. People are buying the games. But, we can hope that Redfall will be something that's a little bit better from the studio. I mean, that one's kind of exciting. Of course, it could be the same type of game that we're looking forward to anyway. So we'll see.
Well, you have to remember, this is not a Bethesda game. They published, they did not develop this game.
Yes.
So this is not a Bethesda game.
Nope. No, it's not. And Arkane's making Redfall. That's the next one that's coming out next year. So that's what the hopes are. And that's a multiplayer, 4-player multiplayer. So hopefully we all get to play it. And it's not a arena battle game. I don't think it is.
I don't think so. I think I've seen some early screenshots. It seems very like Left 4 Dead-ish looking, kind of like Borderlands-ish looking. They had some like screenshots that leaked and it looked actually pretty good. So I'm hoping, I know Arkane can make great games. The games they make are usually not for me. That's just the thing. I'm not saying Dishonored 1 and 2 and Prey are bad games. They're not. I mean, they have their place and a lot of people like them. I just can't get into them, right?
You almost feel guilty for not liking it.
Right, yeah, because I know they're a great studio that do great work. It's just I can't get into their stuff. So, it's a problem. It's a me thing, right?
They make good stuff, just not stuff that belongs on my shelf. It's not my game style.
Exactly, right.
It's not you, it's me.
Well, I mean,
oh no, it's you.
They did the Youngblood and Cyberpilot Wolfenstein games, and I liked those. That was the co-op. The Youngblood was the co-op Wolfenstein, and that was pretty good. So
yeah. So I mean, they do. Like I said, I think everything they do is good in a design way, right? In a game design way. I think they're a pretty good studio, and I think they have good ethics, and they can make a good game. It's just a lot of the games they make don't appeal to me, and don't seem to appeal to. Well, everybody but Shane in this group. but that's not a bad thing. It's not saying that they make bad games. It's just it doesn't work for us.
Right. But even Shane doesn't like this one that much. So
right.
Yeah, and honestly, Nick, you were the one I figured would be into it. But at least we're on the same wavelength again.
Truthfully, and this speaks for our group. For one last thing before we end it here, none of us wanted to play this game to start with. So we did a raffle, and this is the game that we picked in that raffle. And it's unfortunate, because we all don't really care for it, which I think for all of us, we were going to, even though we were going to review, wasn't a game we wanted to, we went in it with an open mind, to say, okay, let's give it a chance. But it wasn't something that was our first pick. I was never interested in this game from the get-go. And, after playing it, I went in with an open mind playing it, but still after it's done, I'm still not interested in it. So, but it's unfortunate, I think there's a lot of people out there that's going to like it. So, if this looked interesting to you, you might like it. It's $60 right now on the PlayStation, and even on PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 5 and Windows. Eventually will come to Xbox because they do own Bethesda, who owns Arkane. So, it'll eventually come to Game Pass and stuff like that. You might just have to wait a year or so before it gets there, but it'll eventually be there at some point. Does anybody else have anything else they want to add to this game before we close this loop?
No, if you've played it, let us know what you think. Let us know if we're right or wrong on your feelings. That's about
what
all
are
I
we
got.
missing?
Yeah, what are we missing?
We must be missing something. Well, we're about to wake up on the beach again because this loop's about to end. Thanks everybody for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to hit the bell notifications. Keep up with new videos that we put out. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.